We're going to take a look at all three schedules for the 2025 NASCAR season, but we'll start with the Cup Series. Fox begins its coverage with the clash at Bowman Gray Stadium in early February. That's then followed by the Daytona 500 on February the 16th. A notable change is Circuit of the Americas moving up to early March before heading out west to Phoenix and Las Vegas. Homestead Miami loses its playoff race again in favor of a spring race date on March 23. And then the Darlington Spring Race also moves up an entire month to April the 6th. Amazon Prime kicks off its coverage on Memorial Day weekend with the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte. Nashville moves up from the very end of June to the very beginning. Michigan moves up 2 full months from August to June 8th. And we've already talked about Mexico City on June 15th on last week's show. TNT will take over on June the 28th at Atlanta, with their coverage continuing on July 27th at Indianapolis for the Brickyard 400. Some notable changes in the second half of the summer stretch are Atlanta losing its playoff date and moving back to the summer and kicking off in the in-season tournament on TNT. Now, Dover also goes from being a spring to summer race, with Sonoma moving up from June to July. Now, when August 3 rolls around, the NBC will start their broadcast race into the end of the 2025 season. They begin at Iowa. Watkins Glen won't be in the playoffs as it returns to its traditional date in August, as Richmond gets a summer date down to one race there. Daytona returns as the regular season finale. Just quickly on that one, very well done, because I thought that was brilliant, because Darlington will also kick off the 2025 Cup Series playoffs. Both races returning to what's become its typical spot on the schedule. Definitely, I think, one that solves every sort of problems we were seeing over the weekend. Now, after the Southern 500 open up the postseason, Gateway will host its first ever playoff race. New Hampshire returns to the playoffs for the first time in several years on September the 21st. One of the biggest changes in the playoffs is Talladega moving back into the round of 8, adding to the drama of who could make the championship 4 at Phoenix. The 2025 Cup Series season concludes on November the 2nd. And a quick, interesting fact, all 4 broadcast partners get a crown jewel race. Daytona 500 is on Fox. The Coca-Cola 600 is on Amazon Prime. The Brickyard 400 is on TNT. And the Southern 500 is on NBC. All the graphics in this segment are courtesy of NASCAR. Well, just after Sunday's race, I'm not sure how much of a big one that Southern 500 was. It wasn't exactly the greatest one we saw. We were bored in the commentary box for the first 2 stages, and it's only really stage 3 that saved it. But Matt, welcome back to talk NASCAR with us as well. Having nearly a week to think about it now, what are your general opinions on the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series schedule?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it last week, didn't we? Because the Mexico news broke before the show last week, and we kind of, as I said a few times, let's just wait for the schedule to come out before we start talking about who's who in the zoo and what's where. I kind of like it. There's a few things that I don't like, but there's a few things that I do like. Sunday the 2nd of February is the day of the bee. It's the Bathurst 12 hour. It's Bowman Gray, and it's my birthday to kick off the year, which is kind of cool. The one thing I don't like that really standing out to me is a bit. We're going to get to hots and knots, of course, later in the show, but the big knot of the calendar segment, Michigan. Well, Michigan, Mexico, Pocono in 3 weeks. Seems like a bizarre bit of scheduling, but there you go. Hopefully, the logistical nightmare that will potentially bring NASCAR have got on top of, and we've got plenty of time to get to it. But that was a glaring standout for me as soon as this landed. Those 3 races being back to back to back in the middle of the year. I like that we've got the Easter weekend break back. Obviously, the last couple of years we've still with COVID and the Olympic break and things like that. Having to move things around, that's not really worked. And of course, the Bristol Dirt race on Easter weekend just didn't work, full stop. So that's a good thing to have that break back. I know we've not got to Watkins Glen being a playoff race yet, but I didn't like the idea of it, and it's still to come. So having it back in August, where it should be, is good. New Hampshire was a surprise to me that that's now bumped up into the playoffs. Really didn't expect that, and that we're going to get trucks there. We'll get to that in a little while. That's kind of cool. And Homestead not being in the playoffs now, it's obviously traditionally been for a very long time the championship race until the last few years when we've been at Phoenix. But it now being bumped, where are we, all the way up to end of March, is, I don't know, seems like a strange one. But you would imagine that NASCAR have placed that race there because that March, April time is when we would generally see weather related events, and we have done for the last few years in that area of the year. So going to a place which you would imagine isn't going to have too much in the way of rain in March is probably a decent idea, especially off the back of Phoenix and Vegas the couple of weeks before. So that's sensible that that's happened. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with it. Gateway will be good in the playoffs because the Gateway races last couple of years have been fairly good, and of course we had all that drama there this year with Ryan Blaney running out of fuel and Austin Cindric sweeping by for the win. So if that something like that happens again in the playoffs next year, we could have a surprise mover jumping into the next round. So yeah, pretty happy with it. There's a couple of things that turn my nose up at, especially that Mexico date where it is, considering all the other two races either side of it are more northern races in terms of the geography. But generally, I'm pretty pleased with it.
If we could just ask Kobe to bring that graphic back up one more time, I just want to bring out a point here as well. Take a look where Homestead Miami is on March the 23rd, and then take a look at Bristol on April the 13th. The reason I'm saying that is that Formula E are actually going to be at Homestead Miami for their second ever Miami Prix and the first on that Roval configuration. Just an interesting thing that they're only a couple of weeks separated, but they could have done the logical assumption, put them back to back, or even put them on the same weekend in order to try and drum up some publicity about the series as well in America. So just a bit of a confusion that I spotted that and immediately thought, oh, I wonder. But I expect then, Matt, just bring you on this one quickly. Formula E really do want to bring up publicity in America, and to have them go and have NASCAR go first, then Formula E later. There's got to be some sort of talk there to go, okay, when NASCAR's there, promote that we're going to be here in a few weeks' time and try and bring the fans back? Or should they have done the same weekend and trying to do like a crossing that we've seen NASCAR and IndyCar do?
I can't imagine that them being on at the same, they're not in the same scope, are they? NASCAR and Formula E. So I don't think a crossover weekend like we saw at the Indy GP last few years would work. But what would be a good idea is, and the way that it's worked out, if you go to the NASCAR race at Homestead, your NASCAR ticket can get you into Formula E at a discounted rate.
Yeah.
That should be on the cards for the people, the good people at Homestead, to get some more fans in the door for that race. That's of course on Long Beach weekend as well. Yeah. So we can have Bristol, Long Beach, and Homestead all on the telly at relatively the same time. I did the calculations. There's 4 IndyCar, of course, we've talked for a long time about IndyCar going to Fox next year. There are 4 clashes, with the first 4 IndyCar races, of course, being on Fox, while NASCAR has their Fox run. The only one that would be a slight stickling point is IndyCar at Barber is on the same Sunday as the Texas Cup race, but have that race at Barber on at 12:30, 1 o'clock local, and then Fox can go straight to the Cup race if it's going to be on Big Fox, of course, if that one's a Big Fox race. So that's one thing. But yeah, that would be the Homestead. If I was working at Homestead Miami Speedway, and I'm not, but if they're listening, please give me a job. That would be, yes, if you can come to book your Formula E ticket with your NASCAR ticket number or whatever, and you can get 40% off or whatever. That would be a way to get the fans in. Adam says he's looking forward to it. Should be an interesting season. We've still got this one to finish, of course, Adam, and it starts, of course, this weekend. And hello to Matthew Owens, who says better placement for weather for Bristol, Michigan, and for Dover.
Absolutely, some better places in the calendar. And Still, Matthew Owen says
Continue.
that stupid in-season tournament. No one is going to be keeping up with a bracket during the chaos of Atlanta, and no one will care about that more than winning the Brickyard 400. Rough. Yeah, the in-season tournament, I'm not too sure how it's going to work. I think it's worth taking a look at it, but certainly when you've got a busy regular season and people fighting for playoffs, no one's going to be thinking, okay, let's just go for this in-season tournament when we're thinking bigger at the end of the year.
Especially if at Atlanta, all of the, well, not all, but a good chunk of the high running championship people and playoff contenders all get swept up in a crash, then that blows the in-season tournament fairly wide open. Then, of course, it's the street race. That whole TNT stretch, of course, is the in-season tournament. So we're going to have Atlanta to start on as a plate race, super speedway race. Street race at Chicago, of course, we've seen weather the last couple of years there, so that could throw a spanner. Sonoma on another road course, and then the Brickyard 400 to finish it off. So that's going to be a wild 5-week July stretch. If you take the in-season tournament out and just have the championship as it should be, without that going on. But I think that's more of a social media thing going on over here while the racing is going on over here.
Yeah, it's going to be something to take a look in as well when we actually get around to it. And I'm just very much getting myself, my head around having to commentate the playoffs. So that's going to be quite fun when it starts on Sunday. Now, let's take a look at next year's Xfinity Series schedule. And all races will be shown on the CW network as well. Now, when I first heard the CW network, I immediately thought of Gilmore Girls, because that's the network it was on. So that was quite a surprise. But a wonderful network it's going to be on with the NBC crew. So Darlington will lose a date. Its only Xfinity race will take place on April the 5th. Many people are already circling April 19 on their calendars because the Xfinity Series will be returning to Rockingham. And as we said on the last week's show, Xfinity is also joining Cup in Mexico City in mid-June. And our own Joe Samiego will like this next part because the Portland race will return, but it's moving back from early June to the end of August as the penultimate race of the regular season. But the regular season finale will take place at Gateway on September the 6th, with this track returning to the Xfinity Series schedule for the first time since 2010. Meanwhile, the playoffs will see a few changes. Homestead moves to the spring as the Talladega fall race returns. Bristol moves from the regular season finale to the playoff opener, and the season concludes at Phoenix on November the 1st. New Hampshire, Richmond, and Michigan won't have any Xfinity races in 2025. So, Matt, what stands out the most to you from the 25 Xfinity Series schedule?
From a grid network point of view, that's 2 trips for Joe to Portland in the space of 4 weeks because he's got IndyCar 2 weeks before that. So plenty of Portland grid network stuff going on in August next year, which we're obviously looking forward to. Darlington going down to 1 race, it's a bit of a shame, but I understand why. And it never really was a double event until the last few years, really, to have, well, not even 2 cup races for a time. So to have 2 Xfinity races is interesting. If Cody can just bring that back up on screen, that would be helpful. Thank you. Lovely. Looking forward to Rockingham. That is going to be really, really good. Much to the point that I didn't make talking about the cup schedule. Kota, 3rd race of the season, big chance for some good road course people to get into the playoffs there, and some people that might not be eligible for playoffs to get a win. But again, much like the cup schedule, fairly standard looking thing, really. Portland shuffling around is going to be interesting. Especially if you're getting down to the end of the regular season there and trying to find yourself a win. Having a road course race as the penultimate race of the regular season might be very valuable to some people. And Gateway being the regular season cutoff race is going to be different because the regular season cutoff race does seem to move around a bit more in the Xfinity Series than it has in Cup. Of course, we just had it at Darlington last weekend. So playoffs is pretty standard from what we've seen the last few years. The Xfinity Series always puts on really good. Last few years really had put on some great stuff. So looking forward to seeing how this one progresses. But apart from Mexico coming in, really not too much to talk about on the schedule side. It's the TV deal side that's more of a thing, as Matthew will attest to. And he says a little disappointed not to see the more standalone events for Xfinity with a new TV partner, hopefully in 26. Yeah, that's the thing. We've got Rockingham there, obviously, and Portland. It'd be nice if they added another couple in somewhere along the line. Maybe, I don't know where, but even if it's a track that the Cup Series has already been to, drop Xfinity off it for one weekend and then bring it in later on in the year at somewhere to have its own date without having a second Cup race, if that makes sense. So interesting to see what happens there, and if they can feed a few more in, not just for Xfinity, maybe for the Truck Series as well.
Yeah, with being on the home for the CW now, it's separate from any other of the networks as well. And NBC still producing that with Rick Allen stepping over to the TV team. So it's all working kind of well, actually. I've been enjoying watching the Xfinity series, and we'll look forward to when we get into the playoff season as well. So, last but not least, here's the 2025 Truck Series schedule. Now, all races are going to be shown on Fox Sports 1. We'll see the number of races increase from 23 to 25 races beginning at Daytona on February the 14th. COTA is gone from the schedule, but the trucks will join Xfinity at The Rock on April the 18th, and they'll return to Michigan for the first time in a few years on June the 7th. And we'll also see 2 road course races during the regular season. The trucks will make their first trip to Lime Rock Park in Connecticut on June the 28th and return to Watkins Glen on August the 8th before the regular season finale at Richmond on August the 15th. The Darlington race will shift from the spring to August 30th to kick off the 2025 Truck Series playoffs. The Milwaukee Mile was this year's playoff opener, but that track has completely fallen off the schedule. Then on September 20th, the trucks return to New Hampshire for the first time since 2017, followed by the series debut race on the Charlotte Roval. That's going to be on October the 3rd. The 2025 season concludes on October the 31st at Phoenix as well. Another quick note, the Truck Series won't race at Gateway in 2025. Would you like to see the series increase to 25 races? And did they do a good job with this particular schedule for the trucks?
I like it. What they have gone away from, which we saw a few years back now, where we'd have Daytona to start the year as per tradition on the Friday night, and then they'd maybe go to somewhere else a week later, and then we wouldn't see them again until Martinsville. There'd be like a 5 or 6 week gap. That has thankfully gone away over the last couple of years and continues, and they've shortened up the gaps at the end of the season from when the regular season finishes and into the playoffs. We've got a week there between Richmond and Darlington, then another week or so to Bristol, and another week to New Hampshire. So that's all tightened up quite nicely. Lime Rock will be an absolute barn burner in the summer there. Great for them to get that deal done, especially as they've kind of fallen a little bit out of favour with the IMSA paddock over the last couple of years and lost their big race there with the big cars and with the GTs as well. So, excuse me. Again, talking of road course races, Lime Rock to IRP to Watkins Glen to finish just before the end of the Truck Series schedule is going to be interesting. As is the Roval as a truck race for the first time. Stand by your beds and stand back from the fence on that one, because that is going to be that's got chaos written all over it, frankly. On a Friday night, perhaps going into the darkness. Who knows what will happen in a truck race at the Roval? But the moving around of the dates slightly and moving them closer together, having a good stretch run there through March into April is really good for me. I like this Truck Series schedule, and always, again, with all 3 series when we get into playoff time, although there's a bit more elongated playoff run for the trucks. It's always exciting racing. More from Mr. Owens. He says, real highlights here. Trucks at Michigan are an absolute treat. They really are. They've not been there for a while. Lime Rock and the Roval will be a spectacle. And a lot more Friday night races, or Friday races, it feels like too, especially. And you can add to that the Thursday night race at Bristol on night race weekend. 16 Friday races I'm counting, and a Thursday. There you go. So if you're at a loose end on a Friday and you need to get some motorsport in your life, you can watch the Truck Series. Jackson says, really hope IMSA can return at some point. I'm guessing he's pointing towards Lime Rock there. Obviously, NASCAR owns series, so entirely possible. Yes, that would be good to see the IMSA cars back up there. Adam is in agreement. Can't wait for Lime Rock with the Truck Series. Going to be awesome, he says. Like to see those comments, and we'll hopefully get some more in What do you think, watchers and viewers out there, about the schedules? Because it's been a talking point of discussion on the show last week because we knew it was coming, and in the group chat. So let's hear your views on schedule news.
Well, I can tell you mine. The only series we're now waiting for is MotoGP, which I'm not supposed to say this, but I may have seen a calendar that has
I've
been
seen
a
a
bit.
list of races in an order
Yeah,
with no date next to them.
yeah, I've
Uh,
seen a bit of a title list with some names or with some dates attached to them. And I know that the teams are still haggling because they don't like those particular dates. So I think that's the reason this calendar's taken a long time to push out. I'm hearing it could be announced on this weekend going in, or it's going to be the next weekend before we start all the flyaway races. So maybe the not San Marino, but actually the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix in late September. We could
2
have
weeks
those
time.
dates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So,
but yeah, waiting for MotoGP and waiting for supercars.
oh, that
Otherwise,
too. Yeah.
you can put your pens and your papers together and or your Word documents, as I do, and get all your
Yep.
calendars ready to go, because it's calendar news is excellent. Love a good bit of calendar news, and it gets us all excited for next year.